Welcome back into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Head over to youtube.com, put our page into your browser, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Find us there, subscribe, leave us a comment, tell us what you think. We're also free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Leave us a 5-star review there and follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Found an article talking about ranking the 7 Falcons with the most to prove in 2020. This from Falcons Wire, which is the Falcons page on USA Today, part of the USA Today network, and the Falcons Wire is kind of their insider page and all that kind of stuff. And it got me to thinking about who needs to improve the most for the Atlanta Falcons this year. Where do they need the most improvement? Now, look, there are several candidates. They need their rookies, they need this, they need that. But when I look at it, for me personally, I think Matt Hennessy has to be the guy that improves the most. So we've talked a lot about the idea of how bad their interior offensive line is. And we broke down a couple weeks ago the rankings in as far as pass protection goes, where you had 3 of the 9 worst offensive linemen, right? You had out of 160 starting offensive linemen, McGarry was 152, Hennessy was 155, and Mayfield was 160. Okay. I've said many times before that you can't put 2 bad offensive linemen side by side with one another and not give them help. In the NFL, you can get away with 1 bad offensive lineman, but if you put 2 guys who are not very good and stand them side by side, it will turn into a disaster. And that's what happened with the Atlanta Falcons last year. Okay. It's not Mayfield or Hennessy just by themselves. It's the combination of putting those 2 guys together that led to disastrous results. You have to have your center stabilize your line. Remember, the Falcons started Chris Chester at left guard in their Super Bowl run. Now, what's Chris Chester most famous for? Exactly. I don't know either. So you can get away. Let's say Mayfield, and again, I know, Mayfield will improve. Okay, cool. So he won't be the worst offensive lineman in the league. That's good to know. He won't give up the most sacks of any interior offensive lineman, top 10 in penalties, lowest grade. Okay, great. Okay, that aside, your center position is such a key. Think back to the Super Bowl year and the divisional playoff round for the Falcons the year after that. Remember in the year in 20, I guess it would be 14, when James Stone and Mike Person were playing center for the Atlanta Falcons. And those 2 guys literally, and I mean literally, couldn't snap the football. Person at times would bounce a shotgun snap off the turf. That's how bad things were. Matt Ryan had to be Ozzie Smith on the turf and get his baseball mitt out and catch the snap off the ground first before he could even gather his wits and read the defense and make a throw or whatever like that. It was a disaster. Now, Hennessy may not be that bad. Drew Dahlman couldn't snap the football when he got a chance last year. But if Hennessy is going to be the starting center, and I think he's going to win the job, to be honest with you, I know that the Falcons, this regime did not draft Hennessy. They have nothing tied into him. But I'll be honest with you, Drew Dahlman profiles the same, and I don't even know if he's as good. And he was a draft pick in a round later than what Hennessy is. And at least Hennessy has some experience. But if the Falcons' offensive line is going to get to some competent status, Hennessy has to be the guy. You can't be bad at center in the NFL. And you look at when they had James Stone and Mike Person, and then they brought Alex Mack in that following year, and he takes over that position for the Falcons. Not saying that he's the reason that they went to the Super Bowl, but him anchoring that offensive line with Jake on the left side, with Ryan Schrader on the right side, and you had Chris Chester and you had Andy Levitre. Andy Levitre was at least competent. They had traded for him. Remember that they picked him up right before the start of the season. I want to say it was during training camp that they traded for Levitre and brought him in. But having Alex Mack and that stable force in the middle allowed you to play with Levitre, who's okay, and Chris Chester, who was probably below average. But having that anchor in the middle made those guys look better than probably what they were. Chris Chester could be hidden because I had Jake Matthews and I had Alex Mack that could help him out. It's the same thing with this group. I don't believe by any stretch of the imagination Matt Hennessy is about to become Alex Mack or Jim Otto or Mike Webster or any of the great centers in the history of the league. I'm not expecting that. But if this Falcons offensive line is going to start to turn some things around, then Hennessy has to lead that charge. I don't expect much at this point out of Caleb McGarry. I don't think Caleb McGarry is going to be a guy, excuse me, who's going to be around with this team after this year. So McGarry is sort of what he is at this point. I think he's in limbo. I think he's the most in danger of losing his job on the starting offensive line. But Hennessy is the key to getting this thing fixed. If you want to at least be competent and help your quarterback out, you've got to be good in the middle. You know, in baseball, we talk all the time about, you know, you want to be really good defensively up the middle. Catcher, second, short, center field. That's an old baseball axiom, is be good up the middle. Be good offensively and defensively up the middle if you can, especially defensively. That's the key areas. You want to be good at your center position. Now, I don't know what to expect from Hennessy. I don't know what a jump and a leap forward means for Matt Hennessy. But if he can get me to at least average or slightly above, then I think you can get away with Mayfield and McGarry. At least you've got Lindstrom standing beside you that he can sort of help McGarry navigate and get through some stuff. And between Jake Matthews and Matt Hennessy, if they can navigate their way through Jalen Mayfield, if he is the left guard, I might not be surprised at all if Jalen Mayfield ends up kicking back out to right tackle and they find, you know, whether it's a Fetty or Wilkinson or one of those guys they brought in to play left guard. But Hennessy's got to figure some things out. And he's got to be the guy. Unless you're telling me that this team is going to go out and look, we've talked about they have some cap space available. They have around $10 million or so that they could play with. You hold back about $3 million. Got about $13 million in cap space. Hold back about $3 million as a emergency fund. You get in the season and somebody gets hurt or whatever, like you have some money available. But if you've got about $10 million, you can find yourself a veteran. You know, you can watch the waiver wire and see who's going to get cut, you know, in these June 1st cuts, heading to training camp, veteran that you didn't expect or whatever like that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But you can't be bad at center in the NFL. You can't be incompetent at center in this league because that's the key to a rush, right? All quarterbacks, I don't care how mobile, how fast, whatever. If your rush is coming up the middle and you collapse the middle of your offensive line, your quarterback's done. As long as those guys have any sort of contain whatsoever on the outside, if you collapse the middle, your quarterback's toast. And your quarterback is not going to be able to just run his way out of a collapsed interior pocket. And the NFL, no matter what you think, is still a game of your quarterback has to navigate the pocket, step up, and push the ball downfield. The NFL does not run around for your life on the outside and make plays. The NFL offensive game, successfully done, is in the pocket, moving around, and you push the ball upfield, and your quarterback delivers it downfield to guys. That's the passing game in the NFL. That's how the successful teams do it. Successful teams don't run around for their life and collapse the interior of their offensive line. So, you know, I saw Drake London, Ebiketie, all the McGarry, all these guys. To me, though, when it comes to who has to improve the most for the Falcons, it starts with Matt Hennessy at center. All right, when we come back, this Deshaun Watson situation is totally out of control. And can the league even fix it? We'll talk about that next. It's Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.